and welcome to the second installment of Copic video tutorials from scrapstamper.blogspot.com. Today we're going to be coloring this very gorgeous stamp from Stampendous. It's available at a lot of different places. I really like to start with the Skin White, which is the color that I would normally use for people, but I like to use it on his little ears. And if you'll notice, I'm doing little circles. That's like the key to coloring well with these markers. And I really love Copics. They're alcohol-based markers, and they're great for stamping because they give this really great color that's bright and vivid. I also find that the key to coloring well is to use certain inks and certain papers. But next I'm going to be using E33 sand for their bodies. There are different combos that I like to do for these little mice. And you'll notice different ones. I'm actually going to do a different combo on each little guy. I find that it looks a little bit better if they're, you know, two different color shades, because mice come in all different shades. Oh, back to what I was going to say about the paper. Georgia Pacific paper is available at Walmart, of all places, and it is by far the best for these little guys. I'm going to be highlighting in Y14, which is caramel, and I'm just going to kind of dot him a little bit more on the edges, to kind of give him some more depth. And then for his friend, I'm actually going to go for a grayscale, which I actually rarely do, but I like it for this particular image because it has so much color already. So I'm just using C3, which is a cool gray. If you notice, I'm not going to color in his belly with the C3. I'm going to color his belly in with C1. That just, again, gives him a little more depth. For the frosting, I really like to do bright frosting. It definitely reminds me of my birthday cakes because I was a bright type of girl. So we're using RV14 to color this in. Again, just those circular strokes. Then we're just going to let it dry for a second before I go back and do my shading. For the popcorn, I'm going to use YR31, which is a color that I would also use for these little munchkins if it wasn't the fact that I'm going to color the popcorn in it. This is a really great, it's almost like a butter, that's what I would call it. I like to color birds in this color as well. Okay. And then the spoon, I'm going to color with just a very light purple. This is definitely a birthday card, a birthday image for a girl based on my coloring, but it can just as easily work for a little boy if you change your color palette. I am doing the base of all of these colors first, and that is a little trick that I learned because this way I can kind of even out the shades and get it to where I like my color combo. Before I go into my shading. I'm going to do a little wicks in this Y15 because of course we have our birthday cake. And then I'm going to do the candles in B01. And this is just a really fun color palette. Really bright, which is nice. And now I noticed that I missed the little popcorn kernel that he has in his hand. And now if you notice, we have our entire first coat done. So now we're going to go back and do highlighting with some of our darker colors. So for the popcorn, I'm actually going to highlight in YR14, which is the same color that I used for one of my little mice. But it looks so different if you see on these little popcorn kernels than it did on him. I tend to just kind of pick the colors that meet my fancy at the time, but the way that these markers work is that they have, I'm using RV34 to kind of highlight on this cake. the first letter is actually your color, the color. So for instance, G7, which I'm using now, is green. The 0 means that it's closest to green. And then, of course, the number is the shade. I'm just going to add one more finishing touch. Just a little shadow on my spoon. And a little bit of gray for the flooring. Again, House Mice stamps are great for beginners. After a couple of these tutorials, I'm going to do some harder images, but I really want to ground you in easier images. And then, of course, I'm just going to do a little tiny bit of pale yellow, which is another color that I could have used for my actual popcorn, but just to show the thing. And then, for my finishing touch, I'm going to take a pink Copic spica and add some pink glitter on my gorgeous cake, and then just use plain clear one for these little tips. And now we have it, our nice house mouse image. Thank you for joining.